Hi there, Charlie. Hi, Travis. And a very warm welcome to the podcast. I am going to have a lot of fun with this episode, is what I'm sensing, because both of you are kind of building in the space with a similar sort of awareness about the centralized labs and the API stack. And it's going to be a good conversation to know about where AI in general in this industry with enterprise side is headed. So I think we can just go ahead with a quick round of introductions and what the project is doing. So Charlie, I think you can take the stage over.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Harry. Thanks, Travers. Thanks for having me. Great to be here. We're looking forward for this podcast conversation. Oh, for the people who are listening, my name is Charlie, co-founder of Coco AI. I'm currently based in Singapore. In the last 7 years, I've been building things in Web3, especially in the infrastructure layer, in the last more or less 10 years. I was early involved with Ethereum in 2015 at Polkadot, one of the first interoperability infrastructure project since 2017. I was their first round investor. I was actively building the ecosystem for almost 3 years, from 2017 to 2020. DeFi Summer brought me back to Ethereum, and then I joined Polygon in 2021. I was the head of APEC for 1.5 years. Driving a lot of the metaverse consumer-facing applications, ecosystem building for them. In the last 3 years, I've been very busy building infrastructure around Bitcoin. So I was the co-founder of a BitLayer, one of the leading Bitcoin L2 network. We built the BVM bridge. We built the YBDC yield-bearing BDC protocols, and we had quite a lot of success and results in the last 7 years, last 3 years in building things for Bitcoin. But we had a huge engineering team. So we had a big thing we have to figure out how to reduce the cost by using AI. So we started using, Cloud Cursor and then Cloud Code, and we started building enterprise AI solutions, especially start from our recruitment. And then now we pivoted to building the multi-agent enterprise team that's kind of how we've been focusing on in the last 6 months. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Charlie. And Travis, over to you.
Sure. And let me just say, I really appreciate you coming on, Charlie. It's great to see some OGs in crypto represented here. And I'm also glad that people with great experience in decentralized systems are taking a leadership position in AI. That's great to see. So my entire career has been in machine learning and AI. Previously, I was kind of a pioneer in the use of computational chemistry and machine learning for drug discovery. Prior to that, I was the head of machine learning for Union Pacific Railroad, was doing transportation systems optimization in real time. And now I'm focused on Ambient, which is a high-scale utility for intelligence for the world. And our value proposition is that we can take compute from all different sources and secure that and verify it and provide it to customers in a way that is really compelling, hopefully from an enterprise standpoint, which is something I think we're going to drill into a little bit today. So again, appreciate your presence here, Charlie, and really excited to hear more from you as well.
Amazing. Now that we are done with the introductions, it's time to get into the more interesting part of the podcast, which is the conversation where things are going to get real. And I highly recommend we keep it like a conversation and we can go ahead with some cross banter. Sure. So the first section that we want to cover, and Charlie, I think this section is highly specific to you, is we want to understand how do we put our best agents on capable leashes or harnesses. Now, I think this is very important, and I think it's best to start with the, I would say, minimum viable definition without any lingo in very crude or basic terms. What actually is inside an effective agentic harness, Charlie? And can you just walk us through the pieces that you have learned the hard way are now the non-negotiables for an agentic harness?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of technical jargons here. For people who are not technical, I think I want to break it down in layman term, right? I'm actually, by the way, also full disclosure, I'm not that technical. I'm actually one of the only person in my entire team not coding every day. The rest of the team, I'm the only person actually not coding, and I have to focus on growth and many other stuff. With that said, I do actually use AI to vibe code a lot of the small tools just for fun and for experimentation. My co-founder has been very focusing on harness engineering, building the best framework for Agent OS in the last 6 months. So I think at the end of the day, the goal for whatever harness or any other methodology is simple. Large model now, from ChatGPT, especially GPT-4 moment now to Anthropic Opus 4.5, 4.6, now 4.7, it's getting really, really good, right? The quality of the code they generated from large model, the content they generated, the research report they generated is professional level enough, right? It's pretty much as good as you can think about, generated from a senior level, director, from software engineering director or research director, right? So, but there's a couple of things which people really want to use AI and make sure it's actually in institutional level. One is consistency. So agent have all the memories, right? Whatever information you send to the agent to do the work, right? To whatever request you give it to them, whatever context you give it to them, it's part of being stored in them, stored in their memory, right? It's in there basically in the computer. So there's like short-term memory, long-term memory, and then you have the company memory. So we categorize in multiple, it's like y-axis and an x-axis and so on. In order to let an agent to generating consistent high quality work across the entire multifunction institution, you need this process, which in this case right now we call this harness engineering or whatnot. It's basically a process as a workflow to make sure you give them the right information. In our case, in my company, I always call this like a single source of truth. Make sure that information is correct. It's from the same truth. It's from the same GitHub repository or whatnot, right? They don't have some random information you provided from other people, right? So that's the one part you want to make sure. The single source of truth is important. The second part, how you handle that information to approach your requests. That process is pretty tricky and a lot of nuances, right? Certain agent team doing very different way. And the fundamental first principle reason is the large model is probabilistic. It's not 100% deterministic. So if you don't have a very good workflow, you train and actually push to your agent to work on it. They just basically gonna YOLO, right? And they're gonna figure it out themselves. So as I said, back again, company need consistent high quality work output, right? But AI will give you sometimes random stuff, right? In some cases, it's just low quality slop, right? That's not something which can meet the requirement from a high level professional institution. So that's kind of how I see, the difference between randomized AI slop from individuals or engineers or hobbyists to enterprise high quality, consistent work managed by proper workflow, by proper methodology. In this case, we call this harness engineering, right? So it's not that technical, but in the high level, but there's a lot of details. It's like devils in the details, right? Like the whole workflow to manage the agent, how to make sure they have access to the right information, how they actually process the information in the right way, and you give them the consistent kind of format, so they deliver the right output based on your format, things like that, right? So whoever received that outcome can basically go take as you go to move forward to the next step, especially in the coding, part of the engineering, and so on. That process is very important. If you don't get it right, you're going to redo it all the time, right? You're going to consume more tokens. You're going to actually spend more time. And that's kind of the argument people are saying. If I'm such a good engineer, the AI is creating all the slop. It's just better. I hand coded it myself because they take you more time and more money, right? So it's kind of the argument, big push and pull. People are saying AI is just a bunch of slop. It's all just not good quality stuff. We don't need that. But I think it's just lack of the proper workflow, and harness engineering is trying to solve that.
Thank you, Charlie, for breaking it down so well. Travis, I actually want to loop you in here because we work with teams building on top of Ambient, right? And you talk to teams like, let's say, Coco AI, for example, on a daily basis. Now, what do you think that projects building in this space get wrong at the harness level, which they confuse as a complaint on your layer at Ambient? What is the problem there? I think this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, well, I think that, first of all, I wanted to say that it was a very good answer on Charlie's part. I think he broke down kind of the critical portions of that. And to reiterate, those are getting the right consistency, having the right context, and having some notion of the enterprise workflows that can package this up. I think this is an excellent starting point. And the mistakes, if you can call them that we've seen, the things that people struggle with, I think we've seen are, first of all, what I'm going to call harnesses fighting harnesses. So for the closed source providers, they have their own guardrails and they have their own underlying workflows. They have auto routing. They have a lot of bespoke infrastructure that is actually kind of changing the responses that you get before you actually get them. And because these labs are in such fierce competition with each other, they're constantly iterating their own harnesses. And so this creates a real churn with the clients we work with from model to model version where behaviors can be very different. And they may have done all the things that Charlie is talking about, but some setting has been changed in Claude, and all of a sudden you can't ask questions about financial reports, or you're getting a lot of refusals related to that. Or you're in the biomedical industry and it doesn't want to answer any questions about a chemical symbol that you put on because that's, registers as a threat at Anthropic or whatever. And so, I think that that's very frustrating to a lot of teams coming in because they don't know the complexity underneath what is being provided by closed teams. So, the way that we try to address that is just giving you the raw, unfiltered results from the model so that you can put your own harnesses around it. So that's one thing that I would say that people struggle with. And, a way we try to address it is just giving you the pure output and letting you have the accountability to manage that. In terms of the context engineering, that is indeed a very tricky problem. People have different approaches. They do RAG, they do graphs, they do most recently something called RLM, which is like the agent doing a text search and then spinning out chunks of text to sub-agents to search, and then the sub-agents report back. It can get very, very tricky. And I think that Charlie nailed it. You have to have a really good memory system so that as you go down a tree of different searches, that you can quickly access relevant information. And also so that you can remember the traces of the workflows that actually worked. As Charlie mentioned, agents can fumble around quite a bit. And once they are successful, you want to be able to capture the steps that were involved and just repeat that consistently. And so I do see a lot of people struggle with the context engineering. They don't really know where to start. And there's so many techniques that it's easy to get lost. And so it's great to have an opinionated view of that. And then I guess the final thing that I would say that people struggle with, and this is starting to emerge, is accountability with respect to these systems. It's very easy if you have a poorly behaving employee to reprimand them, to put them on notice that they're behaving poorly, maybe even to fire them ultimately if they're doing a really bad job. But with agents, it's quite a bit more difficult to pin the blame because the systems that are built around these things are so complex. And as Charlie mentioned, they're non-deterministic often. And so, with Ambient, we focus on offering a proof of what ran at what time and what was generated, so that if questions are raised, people can say, this was the exact context used, these are the exact results produced, and this is how we got here into that situation. It's really an impossible thing to do with closed providers because of their harnesses underneath. It creates a lot of complexity. So I would say those are some of the challenges we faced, but excellent breakdown by Charlie of the layout of this problem and the design space.
Yeah, great explanation with a lot of different perspective.